Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's Luke Innes, going to be reviewing another film for you today. I'm on a bit of an underground, no budget, shot on video type horror thing kick at the moment. So obviously the place to go after doing, Cradle of Fear is to go to perhaps one of the most famous micro budget horror movies, Nekromantik from 1987. Nekromantik, of course, written and directed by Jörg Buttgereit, stars a guy called Daktari Lorenz, who had earlier featured in Buttgereit's short Hot Love. Basically the plot of Nekromantik is follows a guy called Rob Schmack, played by Daktari Lorenz, who works for Joe's Street Cleaning Agency, which is a company that specialises in removing dead bodies from public places, mostly road traffic accidents. And he uses this to sort of indulge in his hobby of collecting body parts and engaging in necrophilia with his girlfriend, a shared interest of the two of them. Eventually he manages to procure a heavily decayed body from the scene of an accident, and he and his girlfriend Betty make this corpse the third party in their sort of polyamorous romance. Rob eventually loses his job with Joe's Street Cleaning Agency, and as a result his girlfriend leaves him, taking their plaything with her, and from there his life begins to spiral out of control. It's very difficult to pin down what Nekromantik is, because it's, you could say it's a splatter movie, it's an exploitation movie, it's a micro budget movie, it's an erotic movie in some ways. It's all of those things and none. It's really almost like, it feels a little bit like a test reel to show Jörg Buttgereit's multifaceted talent for directing, pitted around this very intense and shocking story. You take the scene near the start of the film, just after the title card. It sort of has got quite a documentary type feel, it's all very handheld camera work, which most of the movie is, but it's deliberately quite documentary-esque. There's kind of some sweeping shots looking at the wreckage and all of this sort of thing, and then you advance it to sort of maybe halfway through the movie when you get to like the love scene where they're having the threesome with the corpse. It's shot in an incredibly erotic way, and then you advance on from that towards the end when Nekromantik becomes a much more straight up horror movie. A couple of spoilers here, so skip to this time mark to avoid the spoiler. When Rob goes to the movie, then meets the prostitute and then kills her and then decapitates the guy in the cemetery, all of that kind of feels more like a general horror movie. But then it gets back to during the final scene where he's committing suicide and he's stabbing himself, and he's ejaculating blood and all of that sort of thing. It feels, again, it's got a touch of eroticism about it. Obviously, there's always going to be an element of challenge with a movie like Nekromantik. I mean, look at the subject matter itself. It's a film about necrophilia. It's a film not only that is about necrophilia, but in a way eroticises necrophilia. Not necessarily endorses it, but certainly eroticises it. So it's always going to be a challenging watch to get all the way through, and that's made all the more challenging in this case by the fact that there is sight of a live rabbit being killed for real and skinned. I've got to say, I mean, I'm not I hate the idea of animals dying for film, but this was a professional rabbit breeder killing a rabbit. This wasn't a case of a guy just killing a rabbit on camera for the film. This rabbit was going to die anyway, they just went along and filmed it. I'd rather it wasn't in the movie, but the fact is it's there, and it probably should stay a part of the movie because it was intended to be a part of the movie. I know obviously that will put an awful lot of people off of this film. I can see why. I totally understand. That is, for a lot of people, that's totally beyond the right of a director to put something like that in a film. I take a certain comfort in knowing that rabbit was going to be dead anyway, whether they were there filming or not. Towards the end, obviously, you get the footage in reverse, and kind of this whole thing sort of comes full circle. Also, on the negative front, you've got the fact that this is a deeply, profoundly low-budget movie. And it is, it looks it. And to be fair, you've almost got to credit the makers of the movie in a way, because they haven't tried to hide it. This film was clearly made on Super 8. There's, the film is visibly, deteriorated and scratched, and there's moments where the focus isn't right and all of that sort of thing. But in spite of that, the film at no time really feels cobbled together. I think this movie really feels like it had an intention, maybe not a complete story, not a complete plot, but the intention was always clear with the movie. The director and the filmmakers always knew what they wanted Nekromantik to be and what they wanted it to do. And one of the more interesting elements of Nekromantik that a lot of people draw attention to is the soundtrack, which kind of ranges from a kind of noise, music, dissonance thing to very gentle and tender piano playing. And I've got to say, the soundtrack really adds such an interesting dimension to this film, because the soundtrack forces you to view the film in a certain way, or rather than to view the film in a certain way, to understand the film in a different way and to see its intention differently. It's very much this, the music runs through and the things go on, and your understanding is kind of shaped by the music. Obviously that soft kind of ballad piano that's going on while two people are having sex with a heavily decayed corpse is very disconcerting. It really puts you into a weird space. At the end of the day, some people will see that as a major turn off, but I see that as this film being a success. There's no point in making a horror movie about people having sex with corpses if you're going to make it all nice and lovely, and it's not going to stick with people afterwards. It's got to be very cutting, very hard hitting, and really it's got to really fuck you up. That's got to be the intention of a movie like this. I think Nekromantik does feel kind of misguided in places. It kind of goes off on tangents of its own that it doesn't necessarily have to. And some of the special effects are not great in Nekromantik, but generally speaking, it's got to be said, this is a movie that has to be seen to be believed. Ultimately, if you're a horror fan, this is a movie you've got to have an opinion on, and in order to have an opinion, you have to have seen it. I would highly recommend picking up the Arrow Video Blu-ray release of the movie. It's pretty much everything that you would want. It's got all sorts of different featurettes and documentaries about the movie and the context of its release and stuff, and interviews with Jörg Buttgereit and all sorts of different things. It's also got a couple of Jörg Buttgereit shorts and some music videos he directed. It's got Hot Love on there, which is interesting. It stars Daktari Lorenz as the main character, and it is very similar in terms of its narrative to Nekromantik itself. So I would recommend checking out Hot Love as kind of the sister short to the feature-length movie that is Nekromantik. Hot Love doesn't have any necrophilia in it, but it is about a love triangle. It's about betrayal. It's about vengeance, I guess, in a way. I guess to wrap it up, I've got to say that Nekromantik is an 8 out of 10 for me. It's not a pleasant experience, but then it was clearly never intended to be a pleasant experience, and it is a seriously shocking film. This movie's nearly 30 years old, and it's very, very shocking. There's no real getting around that for me. Don't take my 8 out of 10 as necessarily me telling you to go out there and get this and put it on when you've got mates round, because that's not the film it is. It's not necessarily a film you put on to enjoy. I just think that this is a very witty, well constructed, deeply, deeply disturbing movie, and I think it achieves all its goals. So I'm going to, like I say, Nekromantik for me is an 8 out of 10. If you have seen Nekromantik, why not give me your opinion on the movie? I'd love to hear it. Also, I'm going to obviously plug my podcast. Down in the description there will be a link. If you click the link, it will take you to the Ironcast Podbean page. You'll find all our episodes there. If you're into music, please go and check it out. We put a lot of effort into it, and we put out one a week, and it's always something we're proud of. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen.